현재 전보서도 님미장 오늘 모놈 전보는 야다 바그라다는 엄산도 실마도 돈바 되지 잔라 기시험서를 내전으로 생이 점검서 자워 뒤지션노에라 뉴메 반조자라 소란데 공주도 반보를 신지로
To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Let us continue our study of the Bodhicharya Avatara. In this part, we are learning that not studying and practicing diligently will lead to rebirth in the lower realms. Why does it lead to the lower rebirths? Shantideva explains this through scriptural evidence and reasoning. Yesterday, we already discussed the part explained through scriptural evidence. According to the Samyukta Agama and other related sutras, it is explained with analogies that to obtain a human body from the lower realms is extremely difficult. So this point has already been explained. Today, we explore this topic through various lines of reasoning that it is best that we do not fall into the lower realms, because if we do, it will be extremely difficult to attain liberation from the lower realms. In the verse, it is stated as follows. If due to a wrong done in an instant, one will stay eons in the incessant, what need to say that due to misdeeds I've done in beginningless samsara, I will not go to the higher realms? In fact, it is not only through scriptural evidence that we know it is hard to be liberated after falling into the lower realms, but also with our own wisdom and reasoning, we can understand that it is actually very easy to fall into the lower realms, but hard to get out. For example, now living as humans in the world, whether intentionally or unintentionally, sometimes we commit negative actions. Committing a negative karma does not require a long time. Sometimes it can happen in just a single instant. For example, in front of a sublime Bodhisattva, a Vajra master, or the Buddhas, Arhats, and so on, when facing such powerful objects, even if we give rise to a single negative thought, even for just an instant, the result can be very serious. Here, an instant refers to the ultimately shortest instant of time. As explained in the first chapter, the number of instants in which we give rise to negative thoughts will correspond to the number of eons we will suffer in the hell realm. In other words, for every instant of negative thought, we will experience 1 eon of suffering in the hell realm. We have already discussed this earlier. There are also negative actions committed in the instant of completion of an action. For example, killing one's own father, killing one's own mother, killing an arhat, destroying a stupa, or destroying the representations of the 3 jewels, and so on. Such negative actions usually require a process to complete, and the time taken to complete such an action is called the instant of completion of an action. The negative action committed in this instant will cause one to fall into Avicii hell without respite. Generally speaking, the lifespan of beings in Avicii hell is 1 intermediate eon, meaning beings will endure suffering for such a long time. Those who have studied the Abhidharmakosha should know this. That lifespan is not something that can be calculated using the years of a human life. For an extremely long time, one must endure suffering there. And these kinds of negative actions are ones we may often commit in daily life. Sometimes, in front of a sublime object, we may give rise to negative thoughts, anger, or wrong views, and so on. So it is not difficult at all to create such negative karma. In fact, it is very easy. If we have committed such negative actions, then for a very long time, we will not attain liberation from the lower realms. If that is the case, for us ordinary beings, how many misdeeds we have done since beginningless time until now throughout this boundless cycle of samsara. This is something we can each reflect on for ourselves. Each person can contemplate their own past. Think about our previous lives and the lives before those, all the way back to the time without beginning, to the entire process of our wandering in samsara. Many of us can hardly remember what we have done in past lives, but just in this life alone, we may have already committed many negatives. Some of you are in our 30s or 40s, some are in your 70s or 80s. If you carefully recall your life from childhood until now, how many sentient beings have you killed in this lifetime? How many negative thoughts have you generated? How many harsh words have you spoken that may cause harm to others? if the negative karma created in a single instant is already so serious, not to mention the much negative karma we have accumulated from beginningless time until now, which, if gathered together, would be higher than Mount Meru, deeper than the ocean. We can truly say this. So it goes without saying that we will not go to the higher realms in the future. We really need to reflect on our life in this way. We need to know that the law of cause and effect is not as simple as some people might imagine. The most subtle aspects of karmic law of cause and effect can only be fully known by Buddhas. Of course, most people understand the more obvious aspects of cause and effect. Good actions bring good results, and bad actions bring bad results. If I kill, I will fall into the lower realms. If I make offerings and give, I will attain higher rebirths in the future. This is a basic understanding of cause and effect. I think all Dharma friends who have studied should be clear about this. But as for the most subtle aspects, we can hardly know. All the negative karma we have created from beginningless time until now is all stored in our alaya consciousness. Not a single bit has been exhausted. It is all there. We can say that it is preserved intact without any loss. Will such karmic force manifest someday? It definitely will. So, we can reflect on this. Even a single instant of negative karma is so serious. Over countless eons, how many latent afflictions and karmic seeds or habitual tendencies are still lying dormant in our mind streams, waiting to ripen? So I think for all of us, we all need to pay close attention to the karmic law of cause and effect. As I mentioned previously, Lord Atisha, such a great master, was extremely meticulous about the law of cause and effect. So all of us here, whether lay or ordained, whether you believe in the law of cause and effect or not, it is the way of the world. If we cross this line, if we violate the rules of cause and effect, then we ourselves will definitely experience the resulting suffering or its consequences in the future. So while we are alive and free in the human realm, it's important to reflect often. I have definitely accumulated a great deal of negative karma in my mind stream. If I die without purifying this negative karma, it will be extremely difficult to find an opportunity to purify it in future lives. Many great masters and lineage teachers have all advised that while we are alive, we must diligently confess and purify our negative karma. I hope that everyone will make an effort to confess both the negative karma we can remember and that which we cannot recall. As we mentioned earlier, we can rely on the mantra of Vajrasattva to sincerely purify our misdeeds. When the time of death comes, it is best if we have already managed to purify as much of our past negative karma as possible. And for the rest of our lives, let us make a heartfelt vow. I will do my best not to create negative karma, not to commit negative actions. I will not act recklessly as I did before, carelessly creating negative karma without any restraint. Now I know such behavior is extremely foolish. I must never act like this again. I'd rather starve or freeze to death in this world, which is all fine with me, than go back to creating negative karma as I did before. I think each of us knows our own experiences best. Some people may not believe in cause and effect at all. Some may have some belief, but their faith is not very deep, not yet fully internalized. If you ask them, are you followers of Buddhism? They may reply, yes, I do. Have you taken refuge? Yes, I have. Do you believe in the law of cause and effect? I do. But in reality, their belief is very superficial. They have never studied or contemplated the profound and subtle aspects of karmic law of cause and effect taught by the Buddha. As a result, their understanding just stays on the surface. So I encourage you to do your best to develop a deep faith in the law of cause and effect, not just a superficial belief. It's not enough to just think doing bad things is wrong and doing good things is right. Even those who have never studied Buddhism or any religion know that good brings good results and evil brings bad results. This is something everyone says, at least on the surface. But as authentic practitioners, we should strive to go deeper and not remain at a superficial level. No matter which treatise you study, if you go a bit deeper, you'll always gain new insights. Recently, I have noticed that when studying the Bodhisattva, some people, especially among intellectuals, think it is rather simple and not very challenging. But when it comes to logic, they find it extremely difficult to understand. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche used to say, some practitioners find the more profound Dharma teachings very hard to understand and they are unable to practice them. Then, when it comes to simpler teachings of mind training, they feel these are too basic and are unwilling to learn them. As a result, such practitioners have not attained any realization at all at the time of death. They just return empty-handed to the bardo. How unfortunate that is. Some people among us here really have this problem. I think that if you find logic, Madhyamaka, or other treatises truly difficult to understand, it is not a big issue. What is most important? With the Bodhicharyavatara, not only should you be able to explain the words, but you should also carefully contemplate and explore every sentence and every word. This is truly necessary. Practicing the Dharma is not just about reciting the words on the surface, nor is it about speaking beautifully. It is not like that. In actual practice, we must change our own mindset and transform our negative habitual tendencies. Only in this way can we have hope for liberation. So now, everyone should make this aspiration. With this aspiration, we resolve never to create any negative karma in the future. As for the negative karma we have created in the past, we diligently confess all of it before the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Vajra masters, and Vajrasattva. In this way, our mind streams will be purified. So we should often join our palms and pray sincerely. This is what we, as practitioners, should do regularly. Next, let's look at the following verse. As we discussed earlier, even a single instant of negative karma will definitely cause us to fall into the lower realms, which is truly terrifying. There is no hope for us to attain the higher realms. Some people may think it's not a big deal if I fall into a lower realm. If I fall into hell, the hungry ghost realm, or the animal realm, no matter how many years I suffer, whether 100 years or several thousand years, after that is over, I will still obtain a human body, and it will not be too late to continue practicing. Some people may have this kind of thought. However, Shantideva says in the next verse, once you have fallen into the lower realms, it is very unlikely that you will be able to return. After I have experienced that much, I won't be freed from there, for while I am experiencing it, I will produce still more misdeeds. This means that if you only had to experience the result of your negative karma and then it was over, that would be fine, but it is not like that. While you are experiencing the result of your negative karma, even after you have finished experiencing the results of your past actions, can you attain liberation? No, you cannot. Why not? Because while you are experiencing this suffering, at the same time, you are also creating more negative karma. The negative karma from the past, together with the new negative karma you are creating now, operate together. As a result, you will continue to suffer in the hell and hungry ghost realms. It is just like some people in the world who have already been in prison for over 10 years, locked up for more than a decade and still can't get out, because while in prison they get into fights or even commit murder. Originally they could have been released after 15 years, but during their time in prison they commit many more crimes, so their sentence is extended. Eventually they may end up with a life sentence or even the death penalty. This is what might happen. Once someone is in prison, the environment is really tough. It is actually quite rare for them to study and reform themselves sincerely. It's the same for some beings. After falling due to negative karma, as humans, they keep creating more even after falling. For example, some people kill sentient beings. As a result of their actions, they are reborn in the reviving hell as a retribution. There they experience suffering for 500 years according to their own lifespan. If after that they could be released and attain liberation, that would be fine. But once they are reborn in the reviving hell, we should know the beings there are filled with intense anger and jealousy. Their anger and jealousy are so strong that whenever they see other beings, they use weapons manifested by their karma to attack and kill each other. So, while suffering in hell realm, they are also committing the negative actions of killing countless sentient beings. For every being they kill, they must also experience the result of that action. So they have the negative karma from before and also the new negative karma they are creating now. These two types of negative karma combine. So when will they attain liberation? It is extremely difficult. Generally speaking, once we fall into hell or the hungry ghost realm, we truly have no hope for liberation. We can observe this from the animals in the world now, whether they are animals living in the ocean or animals scattered throughout the human world. They keep on creating negative karma again and again. For example, if I become a bird or an eagle, no matter what kind of bird I become, I am constantly taking the lives of others to survive, constantly eating the lives of others. There is also stealing, sexual misconduct, and so on. So much negative karma is created. Each negative action brings immeasurable suffering as its result. So it is nearly impossible to attain liberation. Of course, there are some beings who keep committing negative actions, but it looks like nothing bad happens to them. People may say, so-and-so has committed very serious negative actions. For example, making a living by killing, by stealing, and engaging in all sorts of bad deeds. They do all kinds of evil, yet their business is thriving, their work is going well, and their family seems happy, and so on. Some people may have doubts. As we discussed earlier, the relationship between karma and its results, the most subtle aspects can only be fully known by the Buddha. But even for the general categories of karma, many people do not really understand them clearly. Karma is divided into many categories, such as karma to be experienced in this life, karma to be experienced in future lives, and karma to be experienced in the next life, and so on. For example, karma to be experienced in this life is the karma we create in this very life, whose results will also appear in this life. There are many stories and examples of this. Karma to be experienced in future lives means that after creating negative karma, the result may not ripen until many years, hundreds of years, or after even many eons later. Only then will the result mature. There is also karma to be experienced in the next life. It means that after this life ends, we will definitely experience its result in our next life, like the 5 crimes with immediate retribution. Committing the 5 crimes with immediate retribution is, of course, extremely terrifying. For example, if I commit one of 5 crimes in this life, we can reflect it in this way. I am alive as a human now, but perhaps in just an instant I could die. After I die, in the very next instant, it is very likely that I will be reborn in Avicii hell. Why is this? Because the 5 crimes with immediate retribution do not involve passing through the bardo. One falls directly into Avicii hell. Sometimes we may hear about cases where people have car accidents, lose consciousness, or sometimes fall asleep and never wake up the next day. But it is very possible. So sometimes our karma is truly frightening. Some people always think, oh, I will keep living next year, the year after, and so on. What will life be like when I'm 70? What about when I'm 80? What about when I'm 100? At that time, what will I eat? What will I wear? Some people may make such plans, but perhaps we won't even reach 70 or 80. Tomorrow or the day after, when we wake up, we may find ourselves already reborn in Avicii hell. It is also possible that we have committed very serious negative karma in this life, but the result may not necessarily ripen in our next life. There was a Geshe named Kampa Lungpa. He once saw that there was a hawk that killed and ate small birds every day, harming sentient beings. Later, the hawk died. After it died, through his clairvoyance, he saw that it was reborn in the home of a benefactor. He found this quite amazing. How could it be that after killing so many sentient beings, it was reborn in a benefactor's home? But the child in the benefactor's family did not live long and died young. After dying young, that being was later reborn as a great teacher, even though it had killed many beings when it was a hawk. At that time, his activities were very extensive. Of course, on the surface, this seems impossible. As a hawk, it committed so many negative deeds. How could it later become a teacher? But later he was reborn as a poisonous scorpion. That story is also quite remarkable. So we need to understand cause and effect is really profound. Don't think that others do bad things and still seem so happy while you do good deeds and feel like nothing's happening for you. For example, we might think, yesterday I recited so many Jambala mantras, but after 24 hours I still haven't become wealthy. Does it really take that long? Or I recited the Manjushri mantra 10,000 times yesterday, but I am still not any smarter. Why haven't I gained wisdom yet? It's like how some farmers, after planting their crops in the spring, expect to harvest barley or wheat the very next day. But after just 24 hours, you can't expect to reap the harvest. that is impossible. Anyone with common sense knows it's not that simple. The principle of cause and effect works in the same way. Nagarjuna also taught this, saying that the karma we create doesn't produce results as immediately as a knife cut draws blood. It doesn't work like that. It takes time. And when the right conditions come together, all the negative karma we have accumulated in the past will ripen accordingly. So when we talk about the law of cause and effect, everyone, whether monastic or layperson, feels a particular sense of caution or even fear about it. This is a very good attitude to have. The other day, I met some of the volunteers here at Larungar. They told me, after listening to His Holiness teach the 100 deeds, we have become very mindful of karma and we don't dare to act carelessly. Just this one comment shows that their understanding of cause and effect is different from that of many others. Some may say, karma never fails, not even by a hair's breadth. And they say it very nicely, but when engaging in non-virtuous acts, they never really consider what kind of suffering they might experience in their future lives. So, since the workings of cause and effect are so subtle, we should try our best to be mindful of our actions. Whether it is about enjoying wealth or doing anything at all, the key point is not to be careless. We should not be too lax or lack self-restraint. If we think it is fine to create negative karma as we please, that is not the attitude of a genuine practitioner. As practitioners, our body, speech and mind should all truly benefit from the Dharma. When our practice truly aligns with the Dharma, then, as it says in the precious garland, we will be happy during the day and happy at night. Even when we sleep at night, our dreams will be peaceful and joyful. But those who do not believe in cause and effect and create all kinds of negative actions, no matter what they have, even if they have wealth and status and possess everything they want or desire, their hearts are not happy, neither by day nor by night. They even often have nightmares when they sleep. So, regarding the law of cause and effect, we really need to pay close attention to it. What kind of attention is needed? It means that in our daily practice, we should often discuss topics related to the workings of karma and read more books about cause and effect. This is very important for practitioners. These days, a lot of people just talk about, for example, sometimes when I see young people, some young laymen, when they gather together, they often talk about who got promoted, who has become an official, who has become rich, who is good looking, whose car is the best, and so on. These are their constant topics. Honestly, these topics might not be very meaningful. Sometimes when girls gather together, they might chat about the prices of cosmetics or jewelry, or whether a certain lipstick is too red or too pale, and so on. Of course, I have never attended such gatherings myself. I really haven't, but I imagine these are the kinds of topics people talk about these days. Apart from these, the truly important topics, such as what karma we created in past lives, what karma we will create in future lives, what is explained in the Abhidharma Kosha, or how karma is described in the Madhyamaka treatises, how the habitual tendencies in the alaya consciousness ripen, and how karma and cause and effect exist between this life and the next. These topics are never discussed. I hope that those of you studying the Bodhisattva can, after studying this treatise, feel somewhat change in your hearts, where before nothing seemed to worry you, but now you feel a bit more cautious. If you experience this kind of transformation, then I think in the rest of your life you will naturally make wise choices regarding karma and its results. That is, you will do your best to do what should be done and avoid what should not be done, not daring to do it. This is extremely important for us as practitioners. Next, the text explains that after gaining a human life, we should practice diligently. If we are not, it is truly a pity. It is explained in two ways, briefly and extensively. First, the brief explanation. Now that I've gained such leisure as this, if I don't cultivate the virtues, there's no deception other than this, nor any greater idiocy. Now regarding this verse. Of course, many of our Dharma friends who study the Bodhicharyavatara, whether in the Tibetan or Han Buddhist traditions, are familiar with these teachings. Nowadays, many great masters in Han Buddhism also often quote from Tibetan Buddhist texts. For example, they often cite teachings from texts like Finding Rest in the Nature of Mind, and the Bodhisattva. I think it is good to reference such scriptural sources. Some teachers, when composing treatises, do not refer to other texts at all and rely entirely on their own ideas. In that case, if they are correct, it can benefit many beings, but if not, it can be a bit risky. It could lead many beings astray. One special feature of Tibetan Buddhism is that whenever great masters compose treatises, they frequently cite scriptural evidence, which makes their teachings very reliable. If you follow such a path, you will not go astray. So in the future, whether you are teaching others, practicing yourself, or composing treatises, you should always seek a reliable basis. For example, omniscient Longchenpa, whether writing treatises on Sutrayana or Vajrayana, always cited the tantras and the scriptural authority of earlier, widely recognized masters. It is not that omniscient Longchenpa simply liked to copy others, or that he lacked the ability to compose on his own and just kept copying. That's not the case at all. So we should really reflect on this. Why do these masters quote so many rich scriptural sources? It's to give us, as students, a kind of compass or guide to rely on in our practice. This is how our practice should be. We should rely on the great masters of the past and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and use their authentic Vajra words to guide ourselves. Only in this way will our practice truly enter the right path. I believe that these scriptural sources, especially those found in the Bodhisattva, are very familiar to everyone, as they should be. But more than just being familiar, you should be able to apply them in your hearts. No matter what situation you are in, you should be able to use these verses and teachings, not only in your speech, but also in your actions. If you can do this, then you are truly a genuine Mahayana practitioner. Since we have now obtained this opportunity, it is as rare as having a meal only once in 100 days. Earlier, we already discussed from the perspective of causes and conditions, numbers, and analogies that this precious human life is extremely rare and hard to obtain. Now we have the freedom to practice the unsurpassable Dzogchen, the path of bodhicitta, or the teachings on renunciation, as well as the teachings on the selflessness of person and phenomena. I think everyone has the freedom to do so. No one can stop us. You are not allowed to practice this teaching. Perhaps there are some restrictions at home or at work, but if you truly have faith, no one can restrict you. No one can control your faith. With such a precious opportunity, we should make the most of it and practice diligently. If I don't cultivate the virtues, if, when all the right causes and conditions are present, we do not practice sincerely and do not make use of this opportunity, then it is truly a great pity. This is what is meant by there's no deception other than this. Deceiving yourself, there is nothing worse than this. Some people think, I went to the market today to buy something and ended up being cheated. I bought something fake. What can I do? I can't exchange it. I've lost out. They feel especially foolish about this. But actually, this is not a big deal. I think making a mistake when shopping is a small matter. But when you have obtained such a precious human life and spend your days in distraction and laziness, without making good use of it, then that is truly a great regret, not making the most of such a wonderful opportunity. In fact, this practice is really a personal matter. We practice for our own benefit, not for someone else. These days, many people call and say, hello, Khenpo, should I keep studying the Bodhisattva? But I feel it doesn't really mean much to me. Whether you continue or not is entirely up to you. It's your own choice. Some people seem to want a reward or some kind of recognition for studying, like, do you know I'm studying your Bodhisattva now? But you're not studying it for my sake. As the saying goes, treating your own business as if it were someone else's. That's not really the best approach. You've come into this world as you are, and when all the right conditions come together, if you don't practice, you're only deceiving yourself. But if you do practice, you will come to appreciate the value of your human life. As for us, on the one hand, we sincerely hope that everyone will learn more, and that is why we work so hard to provide these opportunities out of a wish to benefit everyone. There is no doubt about this. It is certainly true. But if you do everything just to please me or make me happy, that's really your own business. If you give up on your own matters, as human beings, we have the quality of self-awareness. Is this reasonable or not? I think it is. If we do not make good use of this human life, there is nothing more foolish than that. Some people may think, oh, this person is so foolish, they understand nothing. But actually, these people are not like that at all. They are honest and down to earth, studying and practicing the Dharma very well. But some of us think we are clever, believing we have some realization or wisdom, but in the end, our practice is even worse. We don't do as well as those who may seem a bit slow on the surface. In short, when we have obtained this precious human life, its value far surpasses that of 100,000 wish-fulfilling jewels. If we use this wish-fulfilling human body to create negative karma, it is truly a great pity. As Nagarjuna also said, this human body is like a golden vessel inlaid with jewels, but if we use it as a container for cleaning filth, it is a great waste. Whenever anyone obtains such a precious human body, if it is wasted and exhausted without being put to use, it is extremely regrettable. This is also a foolish way to live. I think we should not let ourselves fall into such a state where we become confused and unclear about our direction, or when it comes to practicing virtue, we lack courage and energy. This is not good. We should recognize that this human life is extremely hard to obtain. Now that we have it, each of us should make good use of it to practice the Dharma. Don't wait for tomorrow, or the day after, or for years to pass. Don't do that. Every day, seize the time you have right now. If today you find yourself in a good state and your faculties are quite good, then practice well the teachings of Dzogchen, bodhicitta, and emptiness, as well as renunciation and other essential teachings. If you cannot settle your mind in meditation, then read more basic Buddhist teachings. If you cannot even read, then recite more. The mantra of Amitabha or Vajrasattva or Avalokiteshvara, and so on. In short, every day, make sure you're making good use of your time. Some people say, I'm dedicating myself to the academy or to my guru, so I'm already doing something great, but then do nothing else. It's good to volunteer, but are you volunteering all 24 hours a day? No one does. So in your free time, you can still make use of it. I have noticed some volunteers who don't even have a mala, but holding a mala should not be any obstacle to your work. So for all members of the Buddhist Study Association, I hope that everyone can keep their mala in hand every day. Holding your mala shows you are reciting mantras. Some practitioners do not even have a mala. I remember once at a gathering of about 20 people who had been studying for over 20 years, but not a single one of them had a mala, which was really a pity. Some said they forgot, some said they lost it, some said it was too hot to carry, and some said it was inconvenient at work. Everyone had some excuse, but honestly, making excuses doesn't help. You're only fooling yourself. As we just discussed, there's no deception other than this. That is, you are deceiving yourself. This is what is meant by self-deception, and it is not meaningful. So I sincerely hope that although a few people may have some inconvenience due to their status, you can still use a counter in your hand, which is also fine. Whether you are riding in a car, riding a bike, or doing anything else, whenever you have free time, you can always complete a portion of your daily mantras. This is possible. If you feel that carrying a mala is inconvenient, unattractive, or not dignified, then in the future, at the time of death, you may find you have no virtuous practice to rely on. I remember once when we were discussing some matters about the academy, we went to see His Holiness, and there were about a dozen of us. Then His Holiness looked at each of us, checking to see who had a mala in hand and who didn't. At that time, since it was a surprise inspection, there was one monk without a mala, but everyone else had one. So, thinking back on it now, the disciples who truly listened to His Holiness were indeed different. If it were in another city, among 10 people, you might not find even one with a mala. Just as I mentioned, among 20, not even one had a mala. So I think for all of us studying the Bodhicharyavatara, not only should we study the text, but also recite mantras. It's essential to accumulate virtuous actions and recite mantras. I hope you can keep your mala with you in daily life. It does not interfere with your work or with taking the bus. I have seen many Tibetan drivers who are especially diligent. They recite mantras while driving, always holding their mala, never stopping. They keep going like this without interruption. I think this kind of spirit is something we sometimes find difficult. Some drivers have tried but did not succeed, and later were afraid of accidents. So they just looped the mala around their wrist and recited silently while driving. I hope that all of you truly, in actual practice, can prepare well in both ways. His Holiness Rinpoche used to say this as well. On the one hand, everyone should practice the teachings on emptiness and study the theory, which is an essential part of being a Buddhist. On the other hand, you should recite some mantras every day. We need to do these daily practices. Don't think, oh, I am volunteering now. I am doing something important. Especially for some people, they think, I am volunteering now, so I can't do any other virtuous deeds. I am volunteering, so that's enough. Don't make excuses like this. No matter how you volunteer, you should still set aside time every day. You should have some free time each day, and during that time, you must complete your daily mantras and recitations. This is something everyone should require of themselves. You should be a bit more disciplined with yourself and have no complaints. It is actually quite comfortable in this way. If you always rely on others to push you, that approach may not last very long, and you might not feel at ease in your heart. So in the future, for anyone who is studying the Bodhicharyavatara, the first thing to check is whether you have a mala in your hand. If not, maybe this group isn't quite the right fit for you. At least that's how it feels. So as soon as you hear I am coming, you should immediately go buy a mala. All right, sometimes we joke about these things. It's fine to joke, and sometimes you might think I'm just joking. But there are some things I say from the heart, and I hope you'll remember them. I truly hope from my heart that everyone can do this. Although many of us did not know each other at first, we all share the same goal, which is liberation. And the only path to liberation is through the blessings and guidance of the compassionate Buddha and our kind teachers. Right now, we have such favorable conditions. Since we have this special connection, if any of the advice I share is helpful to you, I hope you won't completely disregard it. This includes everyone here at the Academy. Everyone here should ideally always have a mala in hand. Some people are still reciting mantras even when they shouldn't be. For example, when you are listening to teachings, it is best not to recite mantras. Patrul Rinpoche also made this very clear in the words of my perfect teacher. Next, we move on to the extensive explanation, which is divided into three parts. Frist, reflecting on the results of laziness and ignorance. So, when we have obtained such a human body, we must practice diligently. If we are lazy and do not practice diligently, it is truly unreasonable. At the time of death, we will regret it. As we'll see in the next two verses, one verse teaches that at the moment of death, we will certainly feel regret. And after death, we will also regret it. So it is explained from two perspectives. And if once I have realized this, I am deluded, still despondent, when the time comes for me to die, I'll feel tremendous grief well up. This means that if I clearly understand this principle, but due to my own ignorance and laziness, I do not practice well, then at the time of death, I will definitely feel deep regret. That is the meaning here. Why is this so? Because right now, we all basically know that a human body is extremely rare and life is impermanent. We also know that after death, we will wander in the 6 realms of samsara, according to our karma. Such is the suffering of samsara. But with the blessings of the 3 jewels and bodhicitta, liberation is possible. I think everyone understands this principle. Though we already understand this, but the habitual tendencies of ignorance and delusion from beginningless time in our mind streams are extremely deep-rooted. Such strong habitual tendencies have obscured our Buddha nature, so that we tend to spend our days in a state of confusion and distraction, or in meaningless distraction and laziness, letting all our most precious time slip away. What a pity! In the end, decades of life just pass by in an instant, gone in a flash, like a single moment. Finally, when we reach the time of death, at the moment of death, truly, when the suffering of the dissolution of the 4 elements comes upon us, we will be deeply saddened. At that time, we will realize and think, I met my teacher, I encountered the Dharma, I understood the basic principles of the Dharma, but looking back on my life, it seems I did not do any virtuous deeds, nor did I practice any Dharma. Now I have no confidence or assurance at all. At that time, we will definitely regret it, and the surroundings might not be pleasant, clutching our chest with both hands, crying out in pain and anguish. In such a situation, to have obtained a human body and end up like this is truly tragic and should not happen. Truly, to end up like this is extremely miserable and should not be the case. Therefore, I myself often reflect this way. I have already met such a wonderful teacher and have encountered such rare opportunities. I have received teachings that are like wish-fulfilling jewels and have heard so many teachings on both Vajrayana and Sutrayana practice. Now, to some extent, I have internalized and familiarized myself with these teachings in my heart. Sometimes I feel, well, that's not bad. Although my practice is not as good as that of the great masters of the past, not so perfectly accomplished, at least my faith has never wavered, so it's still all right. If I were to die tomorrow, I would not regret it. Even if I died a bit early, it would be fine. Otherwise, what if one day I lead a conflicting lifestyle, or I do something that may have a negative impact on the Dharma? Sometimes I think, I really hope I don't die too soon. I should make a good confession, practice well, and recite more mantras. I should do more contemplation and practice, so that at the time of death, I will have a bit more confidence. If I can do that, how wonderful it would be. I often think this way. I think many of you probably have similar feelings. Many Dharma friends may feel the same way, because in this very life, indeed, among countless sentient beings, we have encountered the unmistaken, authentic Dharma. Whether it is Vajrayana or mind training teachings, we have already encountered such supreme Mahayana teachings. Now that we have encountered these teachings, if we do not make use of them or practice and spend each day caught up in worldly concerns, immersed in activities that lack deeper meaning, it really is a missed opportunity. So we must engage in practice and strive to obtain some confidence in facing death. This is truly very important. Otherwise, as it says in the Sutra on Mindfulness and in other sutras as well, that at the time of death, the mind will experience great distress. If we have not practiced sincerely, then at the time of death, we will inevitably be filled with regret. A mind of regret will naturally arise. Therefore, everyone should not think, oh, my life is going well right now, and I am in good health. How happy I am. If you just drift through each day like this, in fact, time will not wait for us. Sooner or later, everyone will face the terrifying reality of death. As omniscient Longchenpa said in the Treasury of Pith Instructions, everything in our lives can change dramatically at that moment. How will we face it then? At that time, as a practitioner, if you have some realization and confidence, that's wonderful. Even if you have not reached a very high level, then it is best if you can say, throughout my life, I have done my best to do good deeds. Then you will have no regrets, nothing to feel sorry for. Reaching this state is also very good, I think. In the commentary on the Bodhisattva, Khenpo Kunpal also explains this principle. Now that we have met our teacher and encountered the precious Dharma, if we do not make good use of this opportunity to practice, then decades of life will pass by in an instant. At that time, when you recall the teachings your teacher gave you, you may find yourself filled with regret for not having practiced. And at the time of death, you will feel great fear and terror in your heart. Before reaching that point, while we are still free and at ease as humans, it's best not to let our time slip away meaninglessly. Some people think, I'm not very smart, I don't have the chance to practice, but please don't use lack of intelligence as an excuse. Some people say, I am just too busy right now, I have no time to practice. Please do not use your busy life as an excuse. Some people say, I am not in a good mood right now. I will practice when I feel better. Everyone can come up with reasons not to practice, but it's really not helpful. I think in our study of the Bodhisattva this time, many people in different places have had the chance to study together. Most people feel that they've truly benefited from this teaching, and many also feel they've gained something in their hearts. But there are a few lay practitioners who may not be putting in as much effort. Every time when they are encouraged to share the teachings with others, they always say, I can't do it this time, maybe next time. every time there's a new excuse, and this isn't helpful. It's important to recognize the benefits you gain from this study, because the opportunity to study the Dharma in such a systematic way is not like some of the lectures we see in the world today, which are just 1 or 2 sessions. Honestly, giving a talk like that isn't very difficult. You just prepare in advance, and in 10 days you can have a speech ready. Writing a speech and giving a talk once or twice for the speaker, it is not very difficult. And for the audience, it's not so hard either. If a teacher comes to give a talk for a few days, this is actually a common tradition in many places. You attend once or twice and it is not very difficult. But listening, reflecting, and practicing consistently, day after day, year after year, this is something not everyone can do. But I see most of us are doing quite well at present. As for teaching the Bodhicharyavatara, as long as my health and life allow it, I am determined to complete it and will not give up halfway. I can say for sure, I will not give up halfway. As for all of you receiving the teaching, whether you see it through to the end depends on your own aspiration. Some people, no matter how great the difficulties they encounter, are determined to finish listening to the teachings. To listen to one complete teaching is not such a big deal. In the biographies of the great masters of the past, we see how many teachings they listened to. The Bodhicharyavatara has just over 1,000 verses, and if you can't even finish studying these 1,000 verses, then it's hard to say to study and practice the Dharma for your whole life. I think each of us may have different aspirations and personal commitments, but as for my own vow, it has always been the same. No matter which Dharma teaching it is, whether I am translating or teaching it, no matter how poor my health is, or how difficult the situation may be, I will always make it the top priority in my life. The power of the mind is great. With determination, we will accomplish our goals one day. Now, the circumstances for teaching and studying the Dharma are much better than in the time of His Holiness, when they faced many obstacles that we simply don't encounter today. But by comparison, for some people whose minds are not very steady, they may still encounter obstacles in various ways. For example, when it comes to transmitting the Dharma, there can be various challenges, but I feel that obstacles and hindrances can be overcome through our own diligence. If our diligence is strong, then no demons or non-human obstacles will be able to interfere. So in your study and practice, you must have a firm and unwavering confidence. This is extremely important. Now we come to the final verse. This is the last verse we will discuss today. Some people may think this way. At the time of death, there may be regret, but after death, will there still be regret and suffering? Maybe not. But actually, this is a misunderstanding. In fact, when beings are reborn in the hell realms, they still experience deep regret in their hearts. The verse says, "When the intolerable flames of hell have burned my body long, there is no doubt that blazing fires of dreadful rue will rack my mind." This means that even though I have obtained a human body, if I do not practice well in this life, if I commit great negative actions, then, driven by the force of my karma, I will fall into the lower realms, into the hell realms. Of course, in the hell realms, on the burning iron ground, countless hell guards will torture us. While being burnt, no matter which hell realm we are in, whether reborn in the reviving hell or Avicii hell, the suffering of being burned in hell is truly unbearable. As described in Finding Rest in the Nature of Mind, the fire of our world, sandalwood fire, the fire at the end of the kalpa, all the way up to the fire of the reviving hell and Avicii hell, the temperature increases 7-fold at each level. For the fire in our world, if we touch it with our hands, or even a tiny spark lands on our hand or body, it is already extremely painful. So for beings in the hell realms, as described in the Sutra on Mindfulness and other texts, the scriptures describe the experiences of beings in hell. In these texts, it is said that the bodies of hell beings are totally immersed in the flames, so that their bodies cannot even be seen. Only their screams can be heard from within the flames. All that can be heard are cries of pain. Such suffering in hell is truly beyond words. As humans, it's really beyond our imagination. While their bodies are burned by the flames of hell from the outside in their hearts, the fire of regret is also burning intensely. Some hell beings can even recall their past lives. They remember the negative actions they committed in previous lives, and at that time they feel deep regret. For others, the pain is so intense that they cannot remember, but the guardians of hell will remind them, while torturing them with various weapons, telling them one by one, you committed such and such negative actions as a human, and now you must experience these results. Sometimes molten iron is poured into their mouths. Sometimes burning weapons are used to cut their bodies, and so on. It's a bit like in our world, where some prison guards may beat inmates with sticks, saying, when you were out in society, you did all sorts of bad things, now you've ended up here, and they beat them every day. There's a story of someone who used to get into fights and later became a prison guard. Then, when the person he fought with ended up in prison, the guard was quite pleased, saying, see, you used to beat me, but now you're in my hands. And he would beat him every day. Some gods are like this, as mentioned in the teachings of past lineage masters. In hell, the hell gods will remind beings of their past actions one by one, and use all kinds of weapons to make them suffer. Speaking of hell beings generally, hell beings do not have wrong views. This is also mentioned in some pith instructions we have studied, because beings in hell directly experience the results of karma on their own bodies. So they will not think hell doesn't exist. Sometimes when we see people with very strong wrong views, we may say harsh things like, this person is so stubborn, they believe in nothing. But when they truly experience the suffering of hell, at that time there is no room for wrong views. They see the karma for themselves. Sometimes we may have negative thoughts about others, but actually such thoughts are not helpful. But when one is truly reborn in hell, there will be no wrong views in their mind streams. They directly experience the greatest suffering of samsara. This suffering is present both physically and mentally, and in their hearts the fire of regret continues to burn. So the minds of beings in hell are extremely tormented at that time. That's why, for us now, it's so important not to keep postponing virtuous actions to the next life, to tomorrow or to next year. This kind of procrastination is not helpful. As practitioners, when we have the opportunity, we should do our best to practice right now. This is extremely important. If in this very life we create negative karma and end up becoming a bad person, actually some actors, when performing, would often say, well, I have already become a bad person in this life. There's nothing I can do. I'll just be a good person in my next life. Nagarjuna reminds us that this kind of thinking is quite unwise. So what exactly did Nagarjuna say? Some people, when they obtain a human body in this life, do not make good use of it or cherish it, and simply wish to be a good person in the next life instead. This is the attitude of someone who is careless and confused. Such a person will experience immeasurable suffering in hell in the future. These are Nagarjuna's own words. So as human beings, it's best not to think, well, I really have no choice this time. I've ended up making mistakes, but next time I'll definitely be a good person. If we create a lot of negative karma in this life, it will be extremely difficult to obtain a human body in the next life. So now that we have a human body, we should rely on the guidance of our teachers and do our best to change our negative habits. As individuals, we all have our own shortcomings. Just as the Kadampa masters used to say, our faults are conditioned phenomena, and as such, through confession and awareness, we can always have the chance to start anew and become a better person. Before the end of our lives in the past, I think many practitioners, whether in daily life or in the course of pursuing the 8 worldly concerns, may have created a lot of negative karma. But now, we should make good use of our time and opportunities. In this very life, become a true practitioner. I believe this is very meaningful for each of us. Recently, some people have been attending classes to study Chinese, hoping to become translators for others. A monk who is quite close to me asks, what do you think? Could I become a translator for such and such a teacher? I said, it's possible. You might even earn a little money as a translator, and that's fine. But for yourself, what is your motivation right now? If your intention is truly to benefit others, then that's wonderful. There is nothing wrong with it. But if you just want to go to other cities and work for other teachers just to make some money for yourself, if that is your motivation, then you should not study these things. You should just focus on being a sincere practitioner, even if as a practitioner you may not have much wealth or status. Others may see you as having little and even feel sorry for you. But in reality, living this way as a genuine practitioner in your future lives for millions of eons, you will have already established a very solid foundation. That is what I said at the time, an example I wanted to share. Each of us has different ideas about what a bright future looks like. But what does a truly good future look like? It's worth reflecting on this deeply for yourself. All right, we will stop here for today.
Bandara Badma Sodargye Bandara Badma Sodargye Bandara Badma Sodargye